The warm radiance of the cafe's pendant lights created a snug atmosphere as 26-year-old Emily Carter wiped down the espresso machine for what felt like the 100th time that evening. Her golden hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a plain white tank top beneath her coffee-stained apron. After 3 years at Grind Coffee House, she knew the closing routine by heart and had memorized the habits of nearly every regular. Yet one customer stood out, puzzling her more than all the rest combined. Each night at precisely 8:15 p.m., about half an hour before closing, a man would stride through the door and order the exact same drink, a large black coffee, no sugar, extra hot. He looked to be in his early 30s, with dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard. His clothing was always understated, jeans paired with a sweater or a casual button-down shirt. Without fail, he chose the same corner table by the window. But what truly set him apart wasn't his punctuality or his order, it was his presence. He carried himself with a heavy, quiet sorrow that lingered around him like a shadow. For exactly 45 minutes, he sat alone, sipping slowly while gazing out the window or scrolling through his phone. He never spoke to anyone, rarely exchanged more than a polite nod with the staff, and yet always left a generous tip before vanishing into the night. In her mind, Emily had nicknamed him the Regular, though his true name remained a mystery. Over the months, she developed her own ritual around his visits, making sure his coffee was flawless and his preferred table spotless. Something in his obvious loneliness touched her heart, even though their conversations had never gone beyond the simplest greetings. "Another quiet night for the Regular," her co-worker Daniel remarked as he refilled the pastry display. "I wonder what his story is." "I think he's just lonely," Emily replied softly, stealing a glance at the man seated in his familiar spot, steam rising from his cup. Some people cling to routine when they're carrying heavy emotions. That particular evening, as Emily prepared to lock up, she noticed the Regular still sitting at his table. But something was different. Instead of his usual calm, he looked restless, running his fingers through his hair and checking his phone again and again. As she approached to remind him they would be closing soon, her eyes caught the magazine in his hands. The cover immediately drew her attention. It was a business journal featuring a man in a sharp suit under the bold headline, "CEO of the Year, Building an Empire While Raising a Daughter Alone." Emily froze. The man on the cover bore a striking resemblance to her regular customer, though dressed in formal attire rather than the casual clothes she always saw. "Excuse me," Emily said, gently. "We'll be closing in about 10 minutes. The man looked up with weary eyes, and Emily noticed stress lines that hadn't been there before. "Of course, I'm sorry. I'll get out of your way." "You're not in the way at all," she assured him kindly. "You're welcome to stay until we officially close. Are you all right? You seem more unsettled tonight." He seemed surprised. She had noticed. "Just work stress, nothing a good cup of coffee can't fix." Emily's gaze flicked back to the magazine, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Is that an interesting article?" His eyes followed hers, and his expression tightened. "Just business news, nothing exciting?" But Emily had already glimpsed the name. Nathan Cole, CEO of Cole Industries, single father to a 6-year-old daughter named Grace. The picture showed a confident, successful executive. Yet the man before her looked worn down, burdened. "Mr. Cole," Emily said softly, taking a careful risk, "would you like a fresh cup of coffee? On the house." Nathan's eyes widened with surprise, and something close to panic. "How do you know my name?" Emily gestured toward the magazine. "The cover story. But don't worry, your secret's safe with me. I had no idea when you first started coming here, and it doesn't change anything. To me, you're still just a customer who enjoys black coffee and quiet nights." Nathan remained silent for a moment, clearly weighing how to respond to being recognized. You're not going to ask for a selfie or tell people I come here. Why would I? Emily asked, genuinely puzzled. Everyone deserves a place where they can just be themselves without being bothered. That's what cafes are for. Something in Nathan's shoulders eased, and she saw relief spread across his face. Thank you. You have no idea how much that means to me. Can I ask you something? Emily ventured, sliding into the chair across from him. Why do you come here every night? I mean, you could have coffee brought to you anywhere. For the first time since she had served him, Nathan smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Because here, I'm not CEO Nathan Cole. I'm just a man who enjoys good coffee and 45 minutes of peace before going home to help my daughter with her homework. That sounds like a good reason, Emily said warmly. Being a single parent must be incredibly tough, especially with a demanding career. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, Nathan admitted. Some days, I feel like I'm failing at everything. Being a father, running a company, even just staying upright from exhaustion. Emily heard the raw pain in his voice, and suddenly his nightly visits made complete sense. For what it's worth, she said softly, the fact that you prioritize time with your daughter every night shows you're a better father than you believe. His eyes narrowed slightly. How do you know I spend time with her every night? Because you always leave at exactly 9 o'clock. That gets you home just in time for bedtime stories. A parent who didn't care wouldn't be so precise. Nathan stared at her, astonished. You've been paying attention to my schedule. Emily felt her cheeks flush. I notice patterns with all our regulars. It's part of good service. Emily, Nathan said, glancing at her name tag, can I ask you something now? Sure. Why do you work here? You're clearly smart and observant. You could probably do anything. Emily smiled, thinking of how to explain. I'm working my way through graduate school, psychology major, specializing in family therapy. This job gives me flexible hours, plus the chance to practice reading people and understanding what they need. That explains why you're so good at making people comfortable, Nathan said. And after graduation, I want to help families cope with hard transitions, divorce, loss, big life changes. I want to teach people how to take care of each other during the hardest times. Nathan grew quiet, considering her words. That sounds like exactly what the world needs more of. That night, as Emily locked up the cafe, she couldn't help reflecting on how much her perspective of the regular had shifted. In a single conversation, the lonely man she'd watched for months was no longer just seeking caffeine or routine. He was searching for a small piece of normal life, away from constant demands and responsibility. Over the following weeks, their evening exchanges grew from polite words to real conversations. Nathan began arriving a little earlier, and Emily would sit with him during quieter stretches. They talked about everything from parenting struggles to business ethics to her studies in psychology. Emily, Nathan said one evening, I want you to know these talks have become the best part of my day. Better than signing $1 million deals. Much better. When I sit here with you, I remember who I used to be before success consumed me. You remind me there are still good people who care, without expecting anything in return. Everyone needs someone to talk to, Emily replied, gently. Even CEOs, especially CEOs, Nathan corrected with a faint smile. We're probably the loneliest people in the world. Everyone wants something from us, but no one sees us as ordinary human beings with problems and feelings. 6 months later, Emily still worked behind the counter at Grind Coffee House, but her role had expanded beyond making lattes. Nathan had funded a community program offering counseling and support for single parents, with Emily serving as director. While completing her degree, the center operated next door to the cafe, creating a safe environment where parents could find guidance while their children played nearby. Nathan himself volunteered, mentoring other single fathers who faced the same struggles he once had. And little Grace had become a big sister figure to many of the younger kids. "You know," Nathan said one afternoon, watching Grace help a shy 5-year-old stack blocks, "I never imagined that my evening coffee habit would lead to this." "That's the thing about genuine human connection," Emily replied. "You never know where it might take you if you're open to seeing people for who they truly are, rather than for what they can offer." "And what did you see in me?" Nathan asked softly. "Back when I was just this sad man drinking coffee alone every night." Emily smiled, remembering. "I saw someone trying desperately to be everything for everyone else, but forgetting to care for himself. Someone who needed a friend, not another business contact." "You were right," Nathan admitted. "And you know what I see in you?" "What?" "Someone who understands the most important business of all, the business of caring for each other. Someone who knows true success isn't measured by wealth, but by what you give to improve other people's lives." As evening fell and they prepared to close both the cafe and the community center, Emily reflected on how dramatically their lives had changed. All because a lonely CEO had once needed 45 minutes of peace over a cup of coffee. The mysterious customer who had seemed so distant had taught her something vital, that no matter how wealthy or powerful, people need the same simple things: to be seen, to be understood, and to have a safe place to simply be themselves. And sometimes, the most meaningful discoveries aren't made in boardrooms or laboratories, but in quiet coffee shops where strangers choose kindness, one conversation at a time.